What is up, Sage Naldo here, and today I wanted to bring you another deck list for the Heroine Battle events. Today it's one of the favorites, it is Yamato. So Yamato is a green yellow leader which has double attack, and also if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you can just give out 2 Rested Dawn to one of your characters. So it is a very aggressive leader, and it is a fan favorite as well. Now before we get into the deck list, please consider liking and subscribing as it really helps out the channel. So starting off, I have 4 of the 2K Draco Mihawks from ST12. This helps to start off with a strong board because you can start off on your second turn playing Mihawk into another character such as Kikunojo, Basil Hawkins, Kinemon, this other Kinemon, and be able to just have more bodies early on and be more aggressive starting off while also having your leader with double attack. In addition, we also have Megalo, which is another 2K counter. This Megalo, I have it just because in this meta there are a lot of green Bonnies and I want to have an option to be able to clear out the A-cost kid since it is a big wall which Yamato usually has a tough time trying to get rid of. We also have 4 of the new EB-14 Kinemon. On play, you can restand 3 of your Dawn cards, set them as active. However, you then cannot play any other character cards on the field during this turn. However, on KO, it has another effect which you can rest one of your opponent's cards. Now keep in mind, since it says opponent's cards, you can rest anything. You can rest characters, leaders, dawns, stages, anything. So it is a character that usually sticks on the board because your opponent doesn't want to swing into it most of the time. We also have the 6 cost Law from EB-13. This is just a late game card just to have a blocker and also just to maybe get a 2K back from the board and then play out something else. For example, you can play out the 5 cost Yamato, you can play out a Kikunojo or anything else that you wanted to, or just get back a character that you have on the board if you lack a bit of counter in your hand late in the game. We also have the 2 cost Tonoyasu, which is from EB-04. It is a very old card, but it's very helpful for Yamato because active main, you can trash this character and give up to one of your Wano country type plus 3000 power, and it can be either leader or character cards. Now this is good because you can give plus 3k to your leader, and then you can pair this with a character that can give banish on top of the double attack that Yamato already has, making it a very aggressive swing. And also, since it's active main, you can just play it, leave it on the field, and then use its effect whenever you're actually using something like a banish. We also have the 2 cost Onami from EB-06. This is just another option to give out banish to the leader or one of the characters. However, its trigger is very good because you can KO a 5 cost or less character, which in this current meta there are many of, and they are very tricky to deal with sometimes. Now we also have the 2 cost Izo from starter deck 28, which is Yamato's starter deck. This only gives out banish to the leader, which is fine because usually we just want to give it to the leader because we want to pair it with the double attack. However, if you give out 2 Dawn to this Izo, it becomes a blocker, which pairs perfectly with the leader effect. If your opponent is already at 3 life, you can use the leader effect to just give out 2 Dawn to Izo for free, making him a blocker as well. So we are also running 4 of the 4 cost Kikunojo from EB-06. It is a great trigger body, very sticky because if your opponent KOs it, you can get to heal a life if your opponent is at 3 life or less. And it is very good because it has a 6k stat line as well. In addition, we also have the 4 cost Basil Hawkins from EB-10. Also a sticky body. On KO has an additional effect that you can trash up to one of your opponent's life cards, and it also has a trigger to draw 2 and discard one from your hand, helping you to filter out and find what you need or just get rid of bricks that you may have in your hand as well. For the last of the 2Ks, we have the 4 cost Kinemon from starter deck 28. It is a trigger body, but it's also a 2K counter, so it's very good in this particular deck. The trigger is that if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you can just play it out for free, and if not, it's a 2K counter in your hand. We have also the new Yamato from EB-03. on play, you can give 3 rested Dawn cards to your land of Wonder leader. And also on KO, you can trash up to 1 card from the top of your opponent's life cards. So as you can see, many of the bodies that we have on this deck are very sticky because many of them have on KO effects, which can either benefit you or just take life from your opponent if they swing into them. And finally, for characters, we have the 6 cost Kuma from OB-12. This is just a card to be able to heal, and it is also a sticky body because it has that on KO effect, which if it is KO'd, you can just heal, and the on play, you can just pitch a card from hand to be able to heal as well. And finally, we have 2 of the Dead Man's Game. Just for late game, if we are going against leaders like Vivi that have a bunch of blockers, we can just rest them, or any other leaders that may have active Dawns to be able to use counter events like Shirahoshi, or it can also be a counter for plus 3k just for 1 Dawn. Now, this is the list that I have been testing up to now, and I have been really enjoying it. It has been very fun with the aggressive playstyle, and I have some gameplay that I want to be sharing with you. So let's get right into that. To start off, we have a match against Blue Yellow Nami, being one of the more popular decks in the Heroine Battle meta. And this initial hand, I decided to keep it because I have Tonoyasu and also I have Izo, which is pretty good going into Nami to be able to swing high with Banish. So I just go ahead and I just play out the Tonoyasu here since I went second and I can't swing, but I can prep for the next turn to be able to use its effect and then swing with the Izo, giving Banish to the leader. Our opponent just goes ahead and plays out the Girl promo, cycling 1 Dr. Hogback and swinging 7 into life. I just decided to take because I don't have any 2Ks in hand and I don't want to give out 3 1Ks. So I just take it. We do get a 6 cost law. And I just go ahead and play out the Izo, give Banish to the leader, and use double Tonoyasu to make the leader an 11k and swing into our opponent 11k Banish, so that they either give out a ton of cards from their hand or rebanish 2 of their life early on. Now, since they took the attack, we're able to use our leader effect and give out 2 rested Dawn to one of our characters. So I just go ahead and give out the 2 Dawn to Izo to make it a blocker. Our opponent is now at 5 Dawn and is debating what to do here. Normally, Nami at 5 Dawn can either play out the 5 cost Nami, or maybe they are deciding to play a blocker. However, they just go ahead and play out a Kikunojo and give a Dawn to the leader, and another rested Dawn with the girl's effect to swing 7 to life. I just use the Izo blocker because I don't want to give out more cards to our opponent with their leader effect. And in this case, I can play out the Kuma and just swing 5 to leader. However, I want to apply a bit more pressure, so I just go ahead, play out another Izo, give Banish to the leader, and swing 9k to life, so that I can get 3 cards out of them and then have another blocker on the field and try to avoid our opponent from drawing cards because of leader effect. So they are countering using leader effect, pitching the 7 cost Gravity Blade to make themselves a 7k leader, and then give it out a 2k and a 1k to counter out. Now our opponent is only at 3 cards in their hand while being at 2 life. So probably here is a good option to play out the 7 cost Robin to heal, or try to put some pressure and force me to take a life. However, they do decide to play the 7 cost Robin and heal, and with the leader effect, they're able to draw a card because they trashed one of their life. Now in this case, since they already used the leader effect and drew, I don't mind taking a life here, especially because you're going to be swinging 6,000 power twice. So I just take the first one, and it turns out to be a Kikunojo, which is pretty good to keep on the pressure. And the second one, I do decide to also take it in case I got another trigger body, just because I plan to play the Kuma on this turn and just heal while also developing a large body that is going to be very difficult for them to get rid of. Now I just pitch one of the cards in my hand to be able to heal. I am debating on pitching the Law because it is a brick and I don't have currently a good play for him. So I just pitch him to conserve the counter in my hand and swing 7k to my opponent with my leader, which is a double attack. Our opponent currently only has 4 cards in their hand, so they would be dropping to 2 cards by countering out of this. And I could swing AK with the Kikunojo, however, I do want to keep them at a low hand size, so I just give out 2 Dawn to Izo with the leader effect to get a blocker for the Robin whenever it swings into the leader. Our opponent just goes ahead and swings AK into life, which I just go ahead and block with the Izo to conserve the counter on my hand. Also because I do expect our opponent to play out another Robin potentially because they may want to heal, and I am expecting lower swings from the rest of their board. And they give out an active Dawn to the Kikunojo, potentially swinging 7k into life. So I just go ahead and give out a 2k and a 1k, preserving the Izo because I want to make sure to have another double attack banish into our opponent's life because they are at a low hand size. Our opponent just plays out a Dr. Hogback and they only have 2 cards in hand, and then swings 10k into life, and we get a Tonoyasu, which is perfect because we can pretty much go for game at this time. Our opponent only has 2 cards in hand and 3 life. However, we can do a banish swing with leader while also boosting the leader with the Tonoyasu to go with a guaranteed 9k into life. And with banish, they wouldn't be getting additional cards, so we can do a double 9k to life and finishing out with an 11k swing, as long as there aren't any triggers that can prevent us from going for game at this time. So they do take the initial 9k with banish, and then I go ahead and I first swing with the Kikunojo in case they get a trigger like Red Rock or Gravity Blade that could potentially bottom deck the Kikunojo and cost us the game. So I do another 9k with the Kikunojo with a 11k swing with the Bartholomew Kuma, following it to finish out the game. Now let's go ahead into the next match. Now we're going against a green Carrot. This can definitely be a tricky matchup just because Carrot can rest a 5 cost or less with her leader effect just by having a Mink on the field. We go ahead and keep this hand just because we have a good amount of counter. We have the 5 cost Yamato to apply some pressure onto our opponent, and also the banish Izo as well. Luckily, we go ahead and we draw into another 2k with the Kinemon, but we just go ahead and pass as we have nothing to currently play out. Our opponent just goes ahead, plays out the 3 cost Barto blocker and swings 5 to life, which I do take just because I want to have counter in my hand to be able to counter out of potential swings into my board, considering that the leader can just rest anything that I play out. I just go ahead and play out the Kinemon and restand 3 Dawn to swing AK into life with double attack. I play out Kinemon because I want to keep on developing characters on the board, and also because of its on KO effect, I can just go ahead and rest the 3 cost blocker, or essentially any card that the opponent may play out if it does get a KO. The opponent took the double attack swing, and they are currently debating what to play out now that they are at 5 Dawn. They do attach a Dawn into the Barto blocker, and they attach another one to swing a potential 6,000 to leader. And they also rested the Kinemon with the leader effect since they do have a Mink currently on the field. And because of Barto's effect, they're able to cycle 1 card. So they draw 1 and trash 1 because they rested a character. They swing 6,000 into Kinemon, and I give out a 2k counter. Now I could have just let it go and rest the leader so that I don't have to worry about another swing, which in hindsight it could have been the better option. They do play out a Carrot to be able to search for the Zo stage and they were not able to find it, but they did have one already in hand, and they play it out because of Carrot's effect. And now that they have the stage, they are able to restand Dawn while also being able to restand Mink characters. And they also played out the 2-cost 2k Mink that is also able to restand Dawn at the end of the turn. And then they swing 5,000 into life. Here I am debating if I should take it. I do, because I want to test out if I can get a trigger body. However, we just take a Tonoyasu from the life and we draw into an Onami. So now that we have a character that can give banish while also having the Tonoyasu that can provide an increase in attack to our leader, we could do a big swing into life. However, I just go ahead and play out the 5-cost Yamato so that I can have an additional body, and also because the on play gives out 3 rested Dawn to my leader, and I can do an AK swing to life while leaving 1 Dawn up for the Deadman's Game counter in case I need to counter out of a huge attack. Now the opponent did take the leader attack, which was a double attack, so maybe they don't have a lot of counter currently on their hand, and they went ahead and played out a Pedro, which is a blocker, and on KO it can rest a Dawn or KO a 6-cost or less rested character, while also playing a Tashigi, which protects against KO. And they just go ahead and swing 5,000 into life. And considering that I have a lot of banish in my hand and also a lot of counter right now, I do just go ahead and give out a 1k counter with the Izo because I have other banish options in my hand. And we go ahead and draw into another Tonoyasu, which is going to help us go for game later on. And I'm currently double checking the on KO effect of Pedro to see how I can go about swinging into our opponent's life. Now I could use the Deadman's Game to rest the Pedro and also the Tashigi because I can focus on going for life. However, since our opponent is already at 1 life and doesn't have currently much to do, I just go ahead and play out another Yamato to establish a better board and swing 9k to life with double attack, although it didn't matter at this point because our opponent was already at 1 life. The opponent took and I swing 7k with the Kinemon, and they decide to block with the Pedro, and currently I am debating what I should do. They opted to KO the Kinemon. However, by doing so, I could just use leader effect to attach the rested Dawn to Yamato and then swing a 10k into life. As such, our opponent decided to concede here. So let's go ahead into the next match. For the last match, we are going against Blue Nami, the new promo Nami that is a replacement of the EB-03 Nami. And for our initial hand, we do decide to mulligan because we didn't have much to play with. However, with this new hand, we got 2 Tonoyasus. We have a banished Izo that we just drew, which is a lot better to counter the trigger events that Nami could get, which causes her to mill cards from their deck. And they just go ahead and swing 1k to leader with the Searcher Nami to look for events. Luckily, they didn't find any, and they decided to play the 3-cost Pilaf to draw 2. Now I can swing with the Tonoyasu into the Searcher Nami. I do swing 2 into it. However, I should have attached Dawn to do a higher attack and just be able to get rid of it while also doing a banish swing into life. So I just go ahead, use the Tonoyasu's effect and play out Izo to swing 10k into life with banish, and use the leader effect to give out 2 Dawn to Izo to make him a blocker in case the opponent decides to swing into life trying to mill more cards. Now I do decide to leave the Nami in there because I wanted to prioritize swinging into life early and being able to reduce the amount of cards that they could get from life. And they do get an event this time, and they bottom deck the Izo Searcher, so I don't have another character to be able to swing into the Nami. So I am debating as to if I should play Megalo to just KO Nanami and then swing all into life. However, I just go ahead and play out the 5 cost Yamato to give 3 Dawn to leader and attach the active Dawn and swing 9k again into life to make the opponent either give quite a few cards or take 2 more life, which they do decide to take 2 additional life. And being the 3rd turn, they are already at 1 life, and although they did bottom deck the 5 cost Yamato and swing into life with the Searcher Nami to find another event, since they are already at 1 life, it's going to be very difficult for them to mill the rest of the deck. Now they do have 3 active Dawn, and they will probably just pass here unless they decide to play another Nami Searcher or some Kayas to be able to filter their hand, but they do decide to pass. And currently I am checking to see if I should now play the Megalo to get rid of the Nami or try maybe a banish swing. So I just go ahead and play out the Megalo to get rid of the Nami. And I am debating if I should swing 9k to life, although our opponent has 3 active Dawn, so they will probably be able to counter out easily. And they do so by using Giant Gavel and also Rubber Band, and they do over counter just to get rid of more cards in their hand. And they go ahead and swing 6k into the Megalo, which I'm debating if I should counter out or not. However, I do decide to counter out because I want to make sure that I have additional swings to apply more pressure to our opponent, because it is a lot easier to counter out of swings when they are higher than where you're just poking at life. So I just go ahead and give out a 2k and a 1k. And currently our opponent has quite a few Dawns, so they can do quite a bit of Nami shenanigans to start milling and drawing cards. They play out a U and also a Nojiko to bounce back the Megalo to my hand, which is not too bad considering that it is a 2k counter, and we force them to spend another 2 Dawn to be able to remove it. And currently they have 3 active Dawn while also having 5 cards in hand now that they pitched with Kaya. And I am debating on playing out some character cards here. I was thinking about the Kiku, however, since it's a 4 cost, it can just go ahead and bottom deck it again. So I go with the Kuma because it's going to be harder to remove. And since they have 3 Dawn up, I'm not sure if I should swing 9k to life or just play out the Kiku Nojo and pass just to apply a bit more pressure. So I just go ahead and play out the Kiku to have multiple characters and just pass because they can easily counter with a Rubber Band event or any other 2k or 1k from their hand. Now they do play out the Nojiko to bounce back the Kiku Nojo, which is expected. They also did a peel-off draw, so they have used up to now 6 Dawn because they also play the Kaya to filter their hand. But at least we do have the Kuma on board so that we can do multiple swings next turn to try and go for game and see if we're able to pass through. Now they do use another peel-off and just leave 1 Dawn up, and considering that they could use Gavel, they could potentially counter out at least of one of these attacks, but I just go ahead and use a Tono Yasu to boost the leader 3k because I can just use those 2 Dawns that I just rested with the leader effect to attach them to Kuma and swing. In this case, I am thinking about splitting my Dawn and just swinging with Kuma first in case they get a trigger that they could bounce back the Kuma to my hand. I am not sure the name of the event. I believe it's called I Am a Goner. That can bounce back. I think it's a 7 cost or less. So we want to play around that. I just go ahead and give out 5 Dawn to Kuma, swing 12, and they do get a trigger peel off. And then I swing a 13 with leader to see if we can go ahead and finish the game here. And luckily they had exactly up to 13 in counter and we get the game. This is the list that I have been enjoying with Yamato. It's pretty straightforward, just focusing on banish and Also having targets to flood the board with stuff like Mihawk and trigger bodies that we can get for free. It is definitely a list that can apply a lot of pressure early on in the game and forces our opponents to do some not so optimal plays to be able to survive later on during the match. So I hope you enjoy this list and also try it out. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps out the channel, and I will catch you all in the next one.